Hey everybody, this is Dustin with www.gamblingonfreedom.com. I'm a certified hypnotherapist specializing in problem gambling, gambling addiction, compulsive gambling. And in today's video, I want to talk about what life looks like 90 days after you stop gambling. It's a random Tuesday, there's nothing special. You sort of just wake up. And this time, there's no pit in your stomach. You're not checking your phone to see what the damage was from the weekend. You're not running numbers before your feet even hit the ground in the morning. You just sort of wake up and it's a Tuesday. At some point, you realize it's been like this for a while, not just today, not even just last week. Maybe you can't even remember the last time you woke up bracing for something bad to happen. That is what 90 days in tends to look like. And I want to tell you something that might surprise you. A lot of this, of what I'm about to tell you, started happening way before 90 days. Most of this starts showing up in the first couple weeks. The 90 days isn't when it starts, it's when you realize it's sticking. So I want to walk you through what actually changes and when, right? So most people trying to quit gambling, they sort of think that they have to white knuckle through months of misery before they feel anything different. And that's actually not what happens when you do the real work. When the underlying driver is addressed, not managed, not suppressed, actually addressed, the shift starts almost immediately, right? 90 days isn't when things start getting better. 90 days is when you stop bracing for it all to come back. It's a trust marker, the 90 days. It's the point where you look at your life and you realize that this isn't a honeymoon phase. This is just how you live now. And that's what I want to show you. So these are some things that happen within the first 90 days that you'll notice. The first thing that happens, generally speaking, is the pull. This happens fast, right? The change happens really, really quickly. The pull toward the apps, toward the casinos, toward the betting, that internal tug that feels like it runs your life, that thing that sort of made gambling feel like an emergency, like something you had to do, that weakens very quickly. Not because you're fighting it harder, just the opposite, because the thing underneath it has been addressed. And so the pool just doesn't have fuel anymore, right? Most clients notice this within the first or second session. They walk out and something just feels different. They still have to build new habits, they still have to make new choices, but that gravitational pull, if you will, that used to sort of drag them back is noticeably weaker. Sometimes it's completely gone or almost gone. And they usually say some version of, I didn't expect it to happen like this, or gambling just doesn't feel as important to me anymore. And that's the first shift that I notice working with clients. And when that thing shifts, when that gravitational pull weakens, everything else just starts to move with it, right? The next thing that I usually notice happen with clients is that their sleep comes back, right? They start sleeping again. They're not passing out from exhaustion. They're not drifting in and out of broken sleep with a racing mind. They're actually sleeping full days, right? Full nights. They're going from, a standard 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m. type time frames. This isn't magic, it's biology. When you're in the gambling pattern, your nervous system lives in fight or flight. It's sort of bracing, it's vigilant, it's spiking and crashing all day long, and you really can't sleep well in that state. Your body won't let you because it doesn't believe it's safe. So when the underlying driver to go gamble is processed, your nervous system settles into a parasympathetic rest and digest state. This is the state your body is naturally supposed to live in most of the time. And so sleep just comes back on its own. There's no sleep hygiene routine required. You don't need more melatonin. Your body finally believes it's safe to go offline, and so it allows you to. Once sleep comes back, a lot of different things start moving, right? You have more energy, you have more patience, you have more capacity to handle stress, more ability to be present in your own life. And all of that flows from one thing, and that is a nervous system that's finally not on high alert, red alert, right? Another thing that lifts is shame. One of the things that surprises people the most is that shame lifts very quickly, very early, right? Most people think that shame is going to take years to work through, that they have to carry the weight of everything they did, um, everything they hid, everything they lost for a long time before it starts to sort of ease up. And it doesn't have to be like that. When the real work internally happens, shame drops off quickly. It drops off fast because shame is tied to identity. Shame lives in the I'm a person who does this awful thing. When that identity shifts, when you stop being a gambler and start being someone who used to gamble, the shame loses its container. So I want to say something a little on the important side here because it kind of matters. You know, truth is you should have a 100% commitment towards the change that you're looking for and 0% shame if it ever happens again, right? If you slip, the shame is more dangerous than the slip. Shame is fuel for the next relapse. It's what takes a one time lapse and turns it into a week long spiral. The behavior is just a moment, right? If you go and you gamble, that's the behavior. It's just a moment. But the shame of doing that is what builds the case for the see, I'm still that person. I'll always be that person. Why even try? And you don't need that, right? You need commitment without shame. Do the work. If something happens, you handle it cleanly. No punishment, no self loathing, no story about what it means, just back to the internal work. Clients who sort of get that principle early on, they move through this way, way faster than the clients who hold on to that shame, right? And so the next thing is as that shame lifts, something very specific can happen. You look at yourself in the mirror again. I've been told by a lot of clients it's hard for them to even look at themselves in the mirror because of so much shame. You know, right now, if you're still in it, there's probably a version of you that you avoid, right? You look at your own reflection and you might glance away or look away. And so part of you essentially doesn't want to meet your own eyes because you don't want to see what's there. That's essentially what's happening. There's this shame, this look in the mirror. It's hard to even just see yourself. So that changes quickly too. Sometimes within the first couple of weeks, you catch yourself looking at yourself one day in the mirror and you realize that you're not even flinching anymore. You're just looking at yourself in the mirror. And the person looking back isn't someone you're ashamed of, it's just you. So people tell me that this is one of the moments that it felt really real for them. It's not really big, it's not really dramatic. It's just sort of getting ready one morning and realizing that they could see themselves in the mirror again without flinching. But that's a really important one. Another one that happens, another thing that happens within that 90 days is that your phone changes. Your phone, right? Because right now, your phone is probably loaded. Notifications from betting apps, bank alerts that you don't want to read, texts from people you've been avoiding, browser history you don't want anyone to see. You know, your phone is sort of a source of anxiety, not a tool. It's just an anxious source of just an amalgamation of anxiety, really. And so as the pool weakens, the shame lifts, the phone becomes neutral, right? You check it without dread. You open your banking app and you just kind of see what's there. You don't have to flinch when you get a notification. It just becomes a phone again. And so this one is sort of quiet. You might not even notice it at first. And then one day you just realize that you've been carrying your phone around and you're not even bracing for something bad to happen, right? That low level of dread that's been in your pocket for years is just gone. This is one that not a lot of people talk about, and that is when you're gambling, right? There's this sort of constant background program running in your mind. It's sort of calculating and scheming, tracking what's in the account, when your next paycheck is, which site to use, how to cover the charge, what you're going to tell people, where to find more, right? When can you sneak off, right? All of these things. It never stops, right? It's just this constant background thing in your mind. And even when you think you're relaxing, part of your brain is still running. I know a lot of gamblers who have a hard time just sitting in the quiet with themselves. And so when the underlining driver goes, that program stops. right? The quiet is weird at first. It's almost disorienting in a way, because you have all this sort of mental bandwidth back. And a lot of times you won't know what to do with it. Some people feel restless for a little bit because they sort of forgotten what it's like to just exist without a constant running program like that. But then the quiet starts to become peace, right? You start to think clearly. You can be in a conversation without part of you being somewhere else, right? You can be present in your own life. And most clients feel the shift in the first few weeks. By 90 days, they forgot how loud that program used to be, right? So for this part, this next one, I kind of want to be honest about this part. The gambling goes when the gambling goes, right? Feelings come back, and all of them come back. This is a big one, right? So the hard ones come back, the soft ones come back, but the hard ones coming back, you might find yourself grieving things that you didn't know you'd lost. Right? You might feel angry at yourself or at people who hurt you, or at years that you can't get back. You might feel lonely. You might feel bored in a way that feels unbearable at first because you're so used to that sort of spike of relief. And so this is not a sign that something's wrong. This is a sign that you're actually alive again, right? Gambling was an anesthesia. When the anesthesia wears off, sensation comes back, and some of it hurts. I'm not going to lie. Here's the difference, though. You can actually feel the hard stuff now without needing to numb it. You can move through it, you can process it, you can heal from it. And the reason it never healed before is because gambling kept numbing it every time it tried to surface. Feeling again is part of the result. It doesn't mean you're failing, it means you're finally going to do the thing your body has been trying to do for years. Another thing that comes back is genuine interest, right? Music you used to love, books you haven't been able to focus on in years, hobbies you forgot you liked, conversations you actually want to have. Your attention stops being split. And so you can follow a show, you can enjoy a meal, you can sit with someone you love and actually be there. And this is what happens when your nervous system isn't spending all of its resources managing that sort of unresolved gambling loop, right? So suddenly you have attention, you have curiosity, you have capacity for actual content of your life, right? Another thing is that if you have a partner or a family or people who you live with, they start to exhale, they start to feel better. They might not fully trust you yet. I want to be clear about that. It can take longer than 90 days, and it should, right? Trust gets rebuilt through time and evidence, not through words. But they're not bracing the way that they used to, right? They're not scanning your face and, checking every night to see if something is off. They're not checking your accounts while you're in the shower. And you can feel it when it starts to happen. The air in the house sort of changes, right? They're softer, they're laughing more, they're reaching for you again. And you didn't earn that with a speech. You earned it with weeks and weeks and weeks of showing up and not disappearing into the thing that they were afraid you're going to disappear in. By 90 days, most people have seen enough regular weeks in a row that their bodies are starting to believe what their minds have been hoping, that things are getting better. Even dinner changes, right? Before dinner was a performance, right? This is something that I hear from clients too, is they're sort of there physically, but in their head they're elsewhere, right? They're always running those numbers, they're checking their scores, they're calculating when they might sneak off, or they're half hearing what other people around them are saying. They're sort of a ghost at the dinner table, right? And now they're sort of just there. They hear their kids, they understand what they're saying, they laugh at the jokes genuinely, right? You ask how someone's day was and you actually listen to them, right? And so the people who love you have been eating dinner with a ghost for a really long time. And when you come back, they notice, right? Even if they don't say it right away, they begin to notice. Friendships come back, right? There are probably people you've been avoiding, friends you've stopped calling back, people who used to check in until they stopped because you never responded. Some who know something's off, and some who don't know but can feel the distance, right? You can call them back now. You don't have to explain everything. You don't have to give a speech. You can just reach out. Some friendships come back quickly, some take longer, some are gone. And that's a loss you're going to have to sit with. But the ones that come back for real because you're real now. You're available. Money stops leaking, right? So let's talk about money. 90 days in, you're probably not rich. You might still be digging out of a hole, right? You might still have a lot of debt that's going to take probably years to clear. Let's be real. This isn't the part where I pretend everything is solved, right? But the bleeding into it has stopped. Money that comes stays, right? The balance doesn't drop overnight. You can actually plan things. You can actually think in terms of weeks and months instead of hours to the next paycheck. And so the first time you see a number in your account, that's the same number you left there, right? The first time savings actually saves. It hits different. For years, money was probably a sand castle on a beach. And at high tide, it just goes away. And now it stays where you put it, right? Your evenings will change. So I want to tell you kind of the truth about evenings. They're not very exciting. And that's actually a win, right? You make dinner, you walk the dog, you play with the kids, you sit outside, you watch something with someone you like or love, you read a little, you go to sleep early because you're actually tired from a real day instead of wired from stimulation spirals. And that's it, really. That's the whole thing. If you're still in the gambling, that probably sounds unbearable. How could that be enough? Where's the spike? Where's the edge? Right? So here's what I want you to hear with that. The reason life sounds unbearable from where you're sitting, if that did sound unbearable, is because your nervous system has been retrained to need that spike to feel okay. It's forgotten the baseline can feel good. It relearns. That's what the first few weeks are doing, right? It relearns that. By 90 days, the quiet evening doesn't even feel like deprivation anymore. It just feels like home, feels normal, feels right. And that's the life you're moving toward. Not a constant high, just a constant enough, good enough day. Right? You stop calling yourself a gambler. This is something that happens. Somewhere along the way of that 90 days, how you talk about yourself will shift. Right? You stop calling yourself a gambler, not because you're in denial of it, not because you're pretending it didn't happen, because it genuinely is not true anymore. Gambling isn't something you are, it's something you used to do during a harder chapter of your life when you didn't have the tools or the understanding to handle what was underneath it. You meet someone new and gambling doesn't even come up, not because you're hiding it, but because it's not relevant. It's not who you are, it's not your identity. It's just a thing that happened. And that shift in language reflects sort of a shift in identity, right? And identity is the container that holds everything else. As long as you think of yourself as a gambler, the pool is there, even when the behavior is gone. When the identity genuinely shifts, the pool goes away. By 90 days, that shift has usually happened quietly, without any sort of fanfare. You just notice it one day that you don't think of yourself as a gambler anymore. So, what does 90 days actually look like? 90 days isn't when it starts getting better. Most of this starts shifting in the first few days, few weeks. The pool weakens very quickly. Sleep comes back fast. The shame lifts fast. When all the underlining work is done, 90 days is just a trust marker. All of that other stuff shifts really, really quickly. It's the point where you've lived enough regular days in a row that you stop bracing for all of it to come back. You sort of stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. You look at your life and you realize that it's not just a streak, it's not just a phase. This is how you live now. And that's what the 90-day mark does. It's not when the change happens. So you're not white knuckling through months of misery. It's just when you know the change is sort of more real. And that knowing is its own kind of freedom, because for years you've been carrying maybe a quiet fear that you'd always be this way, that no matter what you did, the gambling would win in the end. And 90 days in, you sort of stop believing that. You stop believing what you've actually been experiencing. If any of this landed, or if you are still in the gambling addiction, I know this might sound like a life that belongs to someone else, perhaps. Like you can't quite picture it yourself being the person on that random Tuesday morning. And that's normal. The version of you that's past all of this doesn't exist yet. You haven't gotten there. But that version isn't a fantasy. That version of you is just on the other side of this work, and the work is doable. What stands between you and that version of yourself isn't willpower. It isn't discipline, and it definitely isn't rock bottom. It's the right approach at the right level, and the approach that works with your subconscious mind instead of against it. And remember, 100% commitment of change, 0% shame if it happens again. That's the posture you want to take. Do the work cleanly. Let the shift happen on its own, right? Trust the process enough to let your nervous system actually settle. If something in this talk landed for you and you want to talk about how this might work or what this would look like, I offer free consultations. There's no pressure. I'm not going to try and pressure you into anything. It's just a conversation about where you are and whether this approach will fit for you. The link will be in the description, maybe in the pinned comments below. And if this video gave you sort of a picture of what's possible, sort of let that sit for a while, right? Just notice what it felt like to see that Tuesday morning, that noticing of that Tuesday morning, of that feeling in your body is already the beginning. That's it for now, guys. Talk to you soon. Take care for now.